What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? NoZoupForYou here. I'm back on the mend, perfectly back to normal, 100%. Everything's fine here. We're all good now, thank you. So I've got some World of Warships gameplay for you, obviously. And I'm playing the Tier 7 York right now, which is not really a normal choice. I guess it is for those of you that are at Tier 7 or going through the German cruiser line, but it's not a ship that I normally play. And in fact, I had to repurchase it. And the main reason why is I'm going back through the German cruiser line for bureau points. I'm pretty close to getting the necessary points for, I think I'm going to get the Druid. There's something about the destroyer I like. I remember when I tested it way back when, I enjoyed it a lot. You know, it's AP only, but it's fast firing. It's like a mini Minotaur. But I enjoyed it. So here I am playing the York, and, you know, the Bureau's kind of nice in a way, because it gives you a chance to play ships that you haven't played in a while. Ships that you've forgotten about. Ships that you might have enjoyed at one point, and you played once and never played again. And that's kind of how I was with the German cruiser line. And going up through it, I'm just now, once again, remembering how really good it is. And for those of you who are new to this game, or newer to this game, and maybe if you don't play cruisers a lot, and there's some nice little torpage right there, that's one thing I like about German cruisers. For those of you looking for a line to play, German cruisers, in my opinion, are very beginner-friendly if you play them correctly. They're a lot of fun. They offer a lot, especially at the low tiers. Now don't get me started about the mid to high tiers. Going back through Hipper was an absolute struggle, and I can't remember what it was like before when I first played it way back eons ago, but going through it again, ooh, man, I was miserable. That was a slog that I got through and I was happy to be done. And I think part of the problem with the Hipper going back through the line is it just gets up-tiered so much now. Back when I first went through the line and played it, I don't think it got up-tiered nearly as much, because in the infancy of this game when I went through it, you know, there just weren't as many players playing at Tier 10. And now that there's a lot of players at Tier 10, a lot more ships at Tier 10, if you decide to play a Tier 8 ship, your chances of getting up-tiered are a lot higher. I'm going to boot, scoot, and boogie out of here, and especially before this Piotr finds me and tries to get a hold of me. But I've got battleships to my right and left, but that's okay, because I'm going to do just fine here. So the higher tiers, you do struggle a little bit, and ultimately I'm trying to get my Hindenburg back, which is still a very, very good ship. A beloved cruiser, if it were, but I would say that the Hindenburg has not really aged quite that well. And again, you know, I'm a little rusty playing it. But the lower tier ships, like the Königsberg, absolute blast to play. I mean, so much fun. And the Nurnberg, too. Both of those ships play very similar to each other because they have similar turret layouts. And if you're good at kiting, I mean, those ships are just an absolute blast. You can do massive amounts of damage with them. And there's another sunken ship right there. Now, the York is kind of an oddball. The York represents really the first type of cruiser in the German cruiser line that plays differently from those lower tier ships. And it can be a challenge because this ship likes to get up tiered a lot as well. And while this round is going to wind up very, very well for me, some of the other rounds where I was bottom tier did not go nearly as well. And that's just because it's a hard ship to play if you're bottom tier. Yeah, you've got some nice attributes in it. You've got your torpedoes. Your guns can hit pretty hard, and there are those torps again. Just absolutely loving the torps right now. Doing rather nicely charging with this ship. And that's one of the things you can do if you're top tier. If you're playing lower tier ships and slower battleships, you can absolutely charge up on them in the York. And the other ships like the Nurnberg and Königsberg, which are, again, really, really enjoyed. I was surprised how easily I got back into them. And maybe it's just because, you know, you're so used to playing tier 10 that when you get bumped down to our lower tier, it's just like, okay, this isn't quite that hard. But I don't think that's necessarily the case. There's still good players down at those tiers, and players that are good because they specifically play those tiers. You see right now how this battleship's trying to eat away at me and, you know, bow in. My armor is just holding up really, really well. These torps aren't going to hit them. They're just not. My AP is going to get them. And there's ship number 3 and, you know, having a pretty good round already right now. And the round's not even over yet. You've got a dominating win, though. So, honestly, going back through the German cruiser line, I mean, it's as good as I remember it. With the exception that I think over time, the higher tiers, the, you know, that tier 7, 8, 9 range kind of has suffered a little bit. There's been a little bit of power creep there, and that's understandable. But they're definitely serviceable. I mean, Hipper you can have great rounds in. It's not like it's a horrible cruiser. It might be tougher if you're bottom tiered, but, you know, you can still do really good in it. Same goes for the Rune, and I actually remember playing the Rune very, very well when I got it. I enjoyed it a lot, and I know a lot of players, they kind of rue the Rune, weren't big fans of it. It was just one of those necessary evils that you had to play before you got to the Hindenburg. But if I recall, I really enjoyed the Rune, and I played it very well. There was something about it that just ticked with me, and I think part of it is, you know, you've got pretty good gun range, you got fairly strong guns. I mean, the German cruisers they've got a lot of favorable attributes to them. They've got good armor, they've got good guns, you've got your torps if you get close enough, you've got great armor, you know. So overall, I would highly recommend the German cruiser line to newer players out there, just because in the lower tiers, the cruisers, in my opinion, are just so much better than their counterparts. I mean, I think they're a lot better than the IJN counterparts, definitely better than the British counterparts, solely because the armor. British cruisers at this tier, the lower tiers, you know, 4, 5, and 6, have it pretty rough. Their armor is just very thin, so a ship like this, if you get the pounce on them with AP, you're absolutely going to destroy them. And I'm just trying to kill this Nicholas here. Someone else is going to get him, though, which is okay. I was kind of at range right there, so I'm going to turn in now and go after this cruiser, this Flint that's just hanging out here, and got a couple battleships left, so this round is pretty much over at this point. We're just doing mop-up duty right now, and, you know, this is probably one of my better York rounds as well. And again, you know, I don't want to say it's a little unfair. It is a lower tier, but, you know, it's still, it can still be a challenge at lower tier, even if you are a seasoned player, if you're a veteran player. And you can see right here, this Flint's just not doing much against being able to protect itself from my AP. And that's another thing that you can love about the German cruisers. Their AP really, really hurts. I mean, Hindenburg, when you get up to that tier, the HE does pretty good. You can start a lot of fires with it, but your AP is absolutely devastating. In many ways, it's kind of like the U.S. cruiser line. I would say their AP feels very similar to each other in that it can absolutely wreck face. Although I would say that it feels like Germany has maybe a little better arc and velocity. I'd have to go through it again. Really, I wasn't thinking about that when I was playing these ships. So my comparison for that, you know, I can't really go off of that much. And this Nagato is just cruising in, and I'm going to start farming him because he's a juicy target right now, and that's what you do when you have junk time. You get that junk time damage, and that's how you boost your stats at the very end of the round, right? So that's what I'm going to do. And there's a fire right there. And like I said, you know, the German line's not bad at starting fires. There's another one right there. I mean, it's not great. It's not as good as some of the other lines out there, like IJN. I mean, I still hate Mogami sometimes. I really do. Actually, they were kind of the bane of my existence in these German cruisers going back up the line. But, yeah, multifaceted, multi-threat ships the German cruisers are. And I'm about to pass through the 100,000 damage line. And that's not a bad amount of damage if you're in a lower tier round. If you're top tier in a tier 7 and you can pull 100,000 damage against tier 6 and tier 5 ships, that's pretty good. I would say you have done some work and you can be proud of your round. And Like I said, this was probably one of the better rounds I had in the York, and one of the few ones where I was in bottom tier, which again, absolutely sucks. This line sucks if you're bottom tiered, but any line will suck if you're bottom tiered. So, yeah, I guess overall, you know, if you're looking for a new line to try, or you haven't done the German cruiser line yet, or if you're a newer player and you're wondering what you should play that, you know, is a little easier and a little more forgiving, I would say German cruisers are a good footstep, a good step into the world of cruisers if you haven't played cruisers really yet, because they've offered that good amount of protection and firepower. So, anyhow, hope you all are doing great. That's my relook at the German cruiser line. Wow, so much XP. Hope you all are doing wonderful. I will catch you all later. Zoop out.